Power is generally defined as the ability to influence others to bring about a change in belief, attitude, or behavior. We asked you to watch two videos describing certain aspects of power developed by social science research. The first video offered a summary of social psychologists John French and Bertram Raven's work categorizing sources of power, and they broke these sources into 6 categories: 3 formal and 3 informal. Legitimate power, the right to issue directives or commands. Reward power, the ability to give a benefit or reward. Coercive power, reward power's flip side, the ability to punish. And the informal powers, referent power, born out of trust, attractiveness, social respect, or affiliations. Expert power, based on knowledge or expertise or experience. And informational power, access to or control over information. Often individuals display aspects of 2 or more of these bases of power, like the boss who has the legitimate authority to make decisions and also to confer promotions and to punish, or the expert who builds trust and social affiliations, or the holder of important data who withholds it from others as a way to coerce other behaviors. Often, too, we see abdications of power. The boss who avoids making a decision so that their opportunity to exercise their legitimate power is abandoned to whatever will fill that vacuum. Or the expert who fails to share their expertise and so loses influence over time. And we see power grabs, those without legitimate power within a hierarchy who use manipulation, such as threats or gossip, delay, or work slowdowns, a type of coercive power, to undermine others and increase their personal power. It's like Game of Thrones, but without all the blood. Finally, there can be sharing of power, true collaboration, which acts as a mechanism to raise the power and influence of a whole team or group, and in which the exercise of power can have a kind of multiplier effect. The second video discussed how power dynamics and power are demonstrated through body language, and how that can reinforce power hierarchies. With awareness, individuals can use the physical language of authoritativeness and approachability to increase their influence in a group. And then underlying these bases of power are our individual approaches to conflict, which we explored earlier. The person with legitimate power may exercise that power competitively, giving orders without input, because their position gives them the authority to do that. On the other hand, a subordinate employee who lacks legitimate power may feel they have no means to express their interests, and thus they accommodate others consistently, giving in without giving their views. A great manager might have the respect of their subordinates because she readily seeks collaborative solutions, asks others for their ideas, incorporates input into her decision-making, an approach which both cements her legitimate power and increases her referent power. What does this mean for a mediator? First, power dynamics are a part of human interaction. They will show up at the table. What might you see? You might see a subordinate who's reluctant to directly address concerns with a superior and speaks hesitantly. You might see a superior who arrives late, dominates the conversation, interrupts, takes up space, dismisses suggestions, and then has to leave early. You might see workplace peers who feel stuck because they see no path of influence or opportunity for change, so they have trouble even imagining a different future or identifying solutions. Power imbalance are always present, and they may have a strong influence where hierarchies are explicit and conflicting. No relationship is perfectly balanced in all aspects. Just because there's a power imbalance, that doesn't mean that mediation is inappropriate. Hierarchies are often an aspect of workplace culture. They communicate a social order, they guide social exchange, and they clarify how decisions will be made. but they can also inhibit engagement and foster resentment. Power imbalances or a perceived lack of power may significantly affect the process. One party may fear retaliation if they speak honestly or raise an issue. One party may feel powerless simply because of their place in the workplace hierarchy. Or those at the table may lack the authority to make the changes they both see as necessary to resolve their conflict. Power dynamics and power imbalances demand a mediator's attention when they impact the tenets of mediation and the mediator's ethical constraints in self-determination, mediator impartiality, and the quality of the process. So what are you to do? First, remember that it's not the mediator's job, nor is it possible to balance all the power imbalances. The boss will still be the boss after the mediation, but you can provide a balanced process. You can and should listen to each party fully. You can provide appropriate balance in the attention you provide to the parties. And if one party requires extra attention, you can explain to everyone that understanding the issues and concerns of each party may not mean exactly equal time. Takeaway number 2. You can intervene when one party dominates the process inappropriately. You can strategically interrupt, reflect, and summarize. You can strategically interrupt and ask a question, or turn to the non-dominating party and ask, "What are your thoughts about that?" You can use a caucus so that the psychological influence of a dominating party is lessened. You can focus the discussion by explicitly identifying the topics and getting the party's consent to address those issues, by setting an agenda for the discussion, by using targeted, focused questions, by summarizing, or by whiteboarding. You can promote self-determination by assisting each party in identifying their needs. You exercise control over the process. And you can reflect and explicitly observe about the negative impact of certain behaviors. And maybe you choose to do that in a caucus. Takeaway number 3. Remember, you have power too. You have the power of the process. There is power in using positive, optimistic language about reaching a solution. Collaborative language, using we instead of I or you, promotes collaboration. There's power in strategic questions. They can shift the direction and the dynamic of the conversation. There's power in reframing a situation so that there's space created for parties to see their own actions or potential for solutions in a new light. There's power in calling out bullying behavior and the impact you see on the conversation. When you hear threats, insults, dismissiveness, you can make an observation about that behavior and the other participant's reaction. You can ask a question, or you can move past the heavy-handed language and reframe what was said in a neutral light. There's power in helping the parties craft a solution that meets everybody's needs. And there's power in creating the space for effective communication. At the mediation table, mediators should take the clues that the parties are giving them about the impact of the process. And if you have a concern about the dynamics you see, call a caucus and ask the affected party, "How is this going for you? What would you like to do differently here?" Finally, takeaway number 4. The mediator has the power and the obligation to end the mediation if self-determination and the quality of the process can't be supported. Hopefully, through the questions that were asked in intake, parties who truly feel threatened or truly fear retaliation will be screened out and referred to other processes which suit their needs better. In those situations, authentic self-determination isn't possible.